Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with veteran jazz pianist Dave Bass on the 2021 CD, The Trio, Volume 1. He found this great trio to rediscover some jazz roots over the pandemic, and he is very pleased with what has happened. The Cincinnati Kid opened up about the COVID lockdown, what has been going on lately, and the realities of the future as he sees it. Enjoy.
Hi, Dave.
How are you today?
Hey, man, I'm good. How's life?
Yeah, life is good. Very happy with the new CD.
Right on. Well, I can tell you one thing that I know for sure right now is that we spoke under completely different circumstances the first time.
Yes, that's correct.
Before the world decided to just totally do whatever it was going to do and turn everything upside down. But at any rate, you have new material out, and it's great to catch back up with you. So thanks for taking a minute out today for Neon Jazz.
Yeah, you're very welcome. My pleasure.
So the CD we speak of is 2021's The Trio Volume 1, and as I kind of mentioned already with the pandemic and lockdown and everything that's going on, you obviously sound happy about the release, but what about timing of this coming out right now when this is like one of the few ways you can directly speak to the fans?
It's really not a function of that. You know, I was able to record the music with the trio, who I've been playing with for a little over a year now. So we have a really great rapport. Last November, you know, that was just before, I guess that was just right around the peak of the pandemic, or just before the peak. And so we just, you know, worked to get it mixed and have the CD produced, and this is the timing for it. So it's nice that it's coming out now when things are opening up again and gigs are just starting to happen. We had a house concert gig a few weeks ago, and we were able to play a lot of the material. So it's great. It's really the best thing about the pandemic for me has been it's really allowed me to focus on practicing in a way I never really did before. You know, there was always, you know, lots of other activities that were taking my musical focus. You know, there were gigs coming up, either with my own groups or at the side band, and I'd be, you know, working on that material. And it was, you know, it was a busier life with the world. And here, the world was walled off, more or less. And so I could just spend lots and lots of focused time at the piano, just working out, you know, minute details of both my playing and, you know, my compositions in a way I really hadn't before. So I was very lucky that way, but not everybody, I would say most people, you know, didn't have that sort of benefit, sadly, from the pandemic. But for me, it allowed me to, as I say, just really, really focus in a new and deeper way into the music.
You know, I guess that's the one thing I do want to kind of touch on is that, you know, this pandemic played in a lot of positive ways, too. I mean, there's a lot of negative that went into it that we don't even have to elaborate on, but there was a lot of positive things for a lot of people. So during this time, what did you learn about yourself that maybe you didn't realize before that will make you a stronger performer or musician?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, one thing I did, the result is this CD, The Trio, is I focused on, you know, the history of my love of music, my journey through music. As you may know, when I first started out back in the day, I was very much into avant-garde jazz. Listened a lot to Paul Bley and Cecil Taylor and Andrew Hill. I've never played any of that material since the early 70s when I was still doing it. And I've sort of re-entered that, sort of not with any, you know, deliberation, really. It was just, I had all this time, and there was the piano, so I could say, well, you know, I haven't listened to this in a while. oh, let me transcribe that. That's really interesting. I used to love that. I still love it. And I'd sit down and I'd work out, these Carla Bley tunes or Andrew Hill tunes, and I found I really it was speaking to me in a new way, after 50 years or so. And when I introduced some of this music to the trio, they loved it. And so for the first time, like I say, in decades, I was re-involved, I think, at a higher level with music that I was really involved with 50 years ago. And so you see that with the Andrew Hill tune, The Griots. You see it with my arrangement of Vashgar by Carla Bley. You see it with the Annette Peacock tune that Paul Bley used to play all the time and recorded all the time, called Nothing Ever Was Anyway. Completely free tune, free harmony, free rhythm, which nothing like that's on any of my previous 3 CDs. And I hadn't played like that in public in decades, like I say. So for me, I sort of just lucked into, because I had the time to sort of just venture into all kinds of areas that I hadn't ventured into before, rediscovering that music that I had loved and learning that I continued to love it, and that my understanding of it was a little deeper now and a little more sophisticated than it had been when I was a younger cat playing. So for me, that's I don't think that would have happened but for the pandemic, because I got to the point where I had I had 2 different groups that were had a fairly busy performing schedule. I was more into arranging for bigger ensembles, as you hear on the New York City Sessions CD and on the No Boundaries CD. There were, where I'm working with multiple percussionists and very, very strong sax players like Phil Woods and Ted Nash, and adding a trombone sometimes or flute, and this was a whole new thing that just felt really good. And I was very lucky to have the cats that I was playing with already very open to it. So
right on.
Yeah, so it's really, there's a lot of little cliches you could say about turning lemons into lemonade and whatnot, but it wasn't anything I did. I sought out to do. It just sort of happened, and then once it happened, then I milked it. Then I went back and dug out old things I had transcribed, and then started transcribing new things. I feel really good. Yeah, thank you.
When we do reemerge from all of this, the world of jazz, how do you see the world of jazz being stronger with all the things that we've gone through over this past year? How do you think the musicians are going to emerge?
I'm ill-equipped to answer that. I think it's going to be all over the place. I think, different cats are going to do it differently. And there's going to be, the music business has been changing dramatically and been fluid for, I guess, about 20 years now, really. And, at one point, you and I thought that LPs were the dinosaurs of the past, and now, they can be collector's items worth a lot of money. So you never know how things move. And also generationally, I think people have different attitudes. The young cats who are, for the most part, coming out of academia, they're very liberally schooled, and they're usually technically very impressive. But because the live gigs, were not what they used to be, they they don't have that sort of experience coming up, and they certainly don't have it with, you know, heavy hitters that could have like a week at a club where they'd really learn, you know, learn from the masters, I guess is the cliche. So I think it's going to be different for everybody. I mean, I'm not sure how it'll be for me. I mean, I'm plugging away, and I'm very excited where I've landed at this point, you know. But I'm an older cat, and I'm lucky to have this sort of rebirth of older styles that I really liked, and be able to push forward with them, and have the ability to release a CD with the material. And it's been getting a lot of airplay, and so apparently it's speaking to people. Because the gigs haven't really opened up very much yet, I still have a lot of time to focus and practice, so I'm still pursuing that. And I got a feeling every musician's just going to have their own way of dealing with it. And a lot of it's going to be, you know, try this, try that, we'll do this. A lot of it's going to have to do with the venues, right? A lot of the smaller venues are gone because, you know, music was never a way to, you know, buy an island in the Pacific. It was done by people who were devoted to the music, like the DJs, like you. You know, people love this music and realize its strength and its power, and so they'll make their own personal sacrifices to make it happen. Whether it's opening up a record label, whether it's opening up a club. And so most of those venues that had jazz performers regularly were, you know, they never were big profitable ventures. They were lucky to break even. So a lot of them have folded. The ones that have stayed open, of course, are the bigger places like Jazz at Lincoln Center and San Francisco Jazz, and I'm sure in Kansas City there's larger venues that have remained open and will be maybe already at this moment having live performances again. But a lot of the smaller ones are just gone, and so surely some of them will reopen. You know, some of the people will try to reopen them. So I think it's really just going to be a hodgepodge of different things, and everybody's going to try to do what works for them. And in some ways, the really new thing that'll come out of it is Zoom and all that. So a lot of I did a couple virtual performances early with this trio that where the pandemic, it was early in the pandemic, and it was right about when we were recording this CD, like last November, maybe October, where we go to a venue that was still there, but just virtual sold tickets through the internet for people to watch it. So we performed at the venue, but the only people in the audience live were the people recording us. Right? So, but other musicians, especially the younger cats who are much more tech savvy than me, they've done all these amazing Zoom performances. Those are people from all over the world, you know, playing together and hooking up, you know, very sophisticated technology, and visually, a lot of it's very impressive. My experience doing we were in the same room playing, but playing it for no audience and just sort of talking to a camera to the audience I imagine being out there, was an odd feeling. I missed the energy from the audience. I mean, jazz, as you know better than most people, Joe, you know, it's a symbiosis at its best between the audience and the players, where, you know, some audience member hears something in a solo they really like, and they'll let out a yell, and the soloist hears that, and it inspires them, and et cetera, and it gets better and better. So creating this in a void, you know, has taken an adjustment. But a lot of especially, like I say, the younger cats, man, they've created some amazing things on the internet, and so that's probably here to stay, is my guess. That's something I think that, but for the pandemic, wouldn't have happened.
So to play off of that idea, what do you hope we all realize about the power of live music since we've been away from it for so long and it's coming back, both audience and musician?
Well, I think everybody always knew it was important, but like a lot of things, it was taken for granted in some ways. And I think, like I said, we just did a house concert just a few weeks ago, and people were still masked, and it was a limited audience because of social distancing, but it was live music. Like, we were there at a house, and there was an audience, and everybody was just exhilarated by that experience because it had been so long, and everyone in the audience told me how important it was for them to be there, even under these restrictions like being masked and socially distanced and not a lot of people and this and that. So yeah, I mean, I think the power of live music, and notwithstanding what I said about the virtual stuff, is now underscored. And so I think people, I think everyone's going to take it more seriously. I think the audiences are going to start coming out in droves, frankly, once there are places for them to go.
I agree. Final question. What do you hope the listener, those that download and buy this album, get from this trio experience, this artistic expression?
It's a very diverse buffet of things to imbibe on. It's really a panorama that I think is relatively rare these days, where you're going to hear some straight ahead, you're going to hear, some classic bebop things, you're going to hear some Latin jazz, you're going to hear, as I said, some very free music, you're going to hear classics, what I consider, some of the great jazz classics from composers like Bud Powell and Carla Bley and Andrew Hill and Thelonious Monk. We do a really nice arrangement of Trinkle Tinkle, which is a really fun monk tune to play. And like I said, also some originals that are just, they just stand on their own. So I think listeners, it's not going to be like listening to a playlist where it's sort of the same mood over and over again, as nice as the tunes might be on a particular playlist. It'll be a very wide variety. So I think for listeners who like a lot of different kinds of music, a lot of different kinds of jazz, let me say. It's all jazz. But it's a chance for them to hear, a modern take on a Monk tune, a modern take on a Bud Powell tune, our own playing around with Johann Sebastian Bach, some Latin things, just all kinds of things. So I think for adventurous listeners who don't want to listen to the same style all the time, this is the album to have.
Right on, man. Hey, man, Dave, thank you for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz today. I really appreciate it. Good luck with the album and the return to the stage.
All right, Joe. Thanks so much. I really, it's always great talking to you.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest cats in Cincinnati, New York City, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. Thanks to Dave for his time, music, and stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit Neon Jazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.